Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. We are about to talk about sex.
Yes, absolutely. It'll be really fun. Great guest, author, biologist. She just had her very first film festival. She's a well-known blogger as well. Huffington Post and also Scientific America. Dr. Carin Bondar joining us. Hello, how are you? How was your own film festival, for goodness sakes? Tell us about this.
Good. So this is something I started 2 years ago with a colleague of mine at Scientific American, and this year it just exploded. We had submissions. It's called Cyberscreen Science Film Festival. We had submissions from all over the world. We had some great sponsors. And it just took place in North Carolina.
It sounds weird, but deep.
Yes, and a lot of the major universities are there, and it's a great hub for science communication and science blogging.
And what kind of films are you guys, or were you looking for? I mean, obviously science-based.
Yes, science-based. So the palette was very empty. We just said 5 minutes or less, give us what you got. And the one that won was just unbelievable. It was a take on Mission Impossible. It was about physics, graphene to be exact. And it was spectacular. It was just a really fun look at how physical processes can be.
Fun and science.
Yeah.
And females don't even usually go hand in hand.
I know, yes,
which
exactly.
is so awesome. And last year we had you on around this time, and
yes.
we were talking about sex in the animal kingdom.
Yes,
is that what we did?
Yeah, we did.
And
yeah, but last time it was a little more, it was predatory almost last time.
You know, I felt like last year I gave the animal kingdom a bit of a hard rap because I did talk a lot about the really tough examples, and there's no romance. So this year
I remember like spiked penises
yes,
and all
and they
kinds
were
of like,
cannibalism.
yeah, well, right. You never forget when you hear about a spiked penis.
But where are we going today with the animal kingdom?
I thought we would talk a little bit about love today. So let's just talk about how it's good in some cases. So there are some fish, some guppies in the tropical areas of the world that have actually evolved these funny little structures on their upper lip. And these are actually fish mustaches, if you will. So I've just affectionately termed this the Magnum PI hypothesis because they're really, researchers who are looking at these things can't really figure out why these fish
I was going to ask whether it's an attraction or is it...
Well, they're thinking that it is actually a stimulant for the female.
A tickler.
A tickler.
They're French guppies.
Wow.
They are, so this is an example of a structure that may not really have a purpose other than pleasing the female during copulation, which may, of course, have her copulate with a male for longer periods of time.
And how fascinating to see this come into play within, an ability of science to record it, right? Where it's sort of happening and you're seeing it play out and trying to figure it out.
And we're trying to figure out. And another really great example here, too, is with earwigs. So earwigs, when you're a male in the animal kingdom, usually it's better if you're big and dominant, or you're quick, or you're sneaky. Because females are tending to be the choosy ones. Well, male earwigs, some of them have varying lengths of vergae, which is their sexual organ.
Their appendage?
Their appendage. Some of the appendages are bigger than the actual bodies themselves. Others not so much.
Attaboy.
Wait a minute, say that again.
So some of them have appendages that are bigger than their actual bodies. And others don't. And this is a heritable trait. But the thing is, the ones with the really big schlongs, if you will, are not bigger. They're not more aggressive. They're not winning any more fights, but the females are choosing to have sex with them. Why?
So size does matter.
It seems to matter, but you'd think it wouldn't because they take a lot longer to transfer their sperm based on the length of the appendage. And a female, therefore, has her time being taken up a lot more, which isn't a good thing. She's got other things to do. She's got to protect herself from predators and so on. They really think it's all about the stimulation.
Really? So how... who decides that this is something that, I mean,
who monitors this?
How do you measure an earwig schlong, if you will?
Easily. You just take it out and get a ruler.
And now we know how Dr. Bondar spends her weekends.
Because it does indicate, I mean, what things we always attribute human traits to, at least in the general public, right?
Yes.
But to see how it plays out in nature and whether it really does affect anything.
Well, and it's really interesting. Sometimes, the major theories that we have in biology and evolution, there's always these little examples where we're like, what? How come these guys
does that mean?
And it doesn't really make
sense. Let's talk about frogs and orgies.
Oh, yes, this is a great example. So the foam nest tree frogs in Australia, 90% of females that are in the mating process mate with more than 10 males at a time. This is called simultaneous polyandry.
Those little hoochies.
I know. You want to say this, right? You want to say tramps, whores. course. And they're basically, they create this foam nest in a tree, and she crawls in there, releases her eggs, and usually 10 or more males
The guys come to
crawl in
party?
there also.
Yeah.
And it's a great big frog party. And so some recent research looked at whether there was some advantage to the offspring that come from these orgy ones versus the ones that simply have one male and one female.
So
because in
the
10%
mutt
of the
theory,
cases,
right? You
there's
get lots of different mixes, and
that's where they're heading with it. They haven't come up with some very concrete evidence, but initial results suggest that because these frogs live in very stochastic or very changing environments, having a lot of genetic diversity in your offspring does provide a serious advantage. And so they really do know what they're doing. It sounds very tawdry at first.
yeah.
Survival of the fittest.
If you are with a girl that tries to convince you about this theory, you may want to just read
If a
up
girl
before.
asks you to come up into a tree to have sex, you might have more than you're asking for. Now let's talk about butterfly incest.
Yeah. So
Butterflies are so pretty. They don't seem like they do weird things.
They're so pretty, so delicate, you know, so lovely. And
I'm sorry, were you talking to your sister?
There are most
Ew.
creatures in the animal kingdom can recognize who are siblings and who aren't. Humans can't. We luckily have social barriers to incest. We know who our family is, we know who our cousins are, and generally speaking, we're like, okay, we don't have sex with those people because we've learned not to. Most animals have a chemical or a physical way of detecting who is a relative and who isn't. In these butterflies, the green-veined white butterflies, there is no recognition mechanism between siblings. So these females just go at it with whoever they find, and oftentimes it is a brother because they live in dense groups.
I mean, there's negative consequences to having sex with your relatives. So what happens with these butterflies?
They actually have a 25% survival rate of offspring that are born of brothers. So it's a big deal. It's a big problem. What researchers have found, even though females don't discriminate against their brothers, they still have sex with them. After having sex with a brother, they have a very short mating interval before they have sex with another one. So even though behaviorally they're not discriminating their brothers, their body somehow physiologically is able to say, that sperm isn't what I want some different sperm, so they go ahead and they mate again really quickly.
Fascinating,
Isn't
right?
it
I mean, that there's these
fascinating?
biological triggers that even though you don't, like you say, have the social morals and social structures around you that are saying these are bad.
Their bodies seem to be able to correct for it after the fact. And so this is
there is
a mode
recognition
of being able to recognize it. We don't exactly understand how that works.
Okay,
koalas don't sound tough to me.
From incest to koalas punching.
Really cuddly. I thought I'd leave you with a super lovely little story about koalas. I mean, koalas are these very, very metabolically slow animals that basically hang out in trees, munching on eucalyptus, which is a very low quality food source. So they basically have to eat nonstop. And so large males, it doesn't matter if they're large or if they're small, they're not aggressive, they're not fighting for the ladies. So how do females choose a male partner if you're a koala bear? Well, it turns out that the large ones actually have an advantage despite the fact that they're not going to throw that weight around. What they do is they have the ability to store a little bit more energy. So they make these bellowing sounds, and because they can store more energy, they make these bellows for longer periods of time.
Give us an example.
Yeah, what's that? I can't imagine what a lazy bellow a koala would have. It sounds like a snore.
It sounds like, honey, get me a beer.
It's got to be a really kind of just a very cuddly, cute sound. It must be.
Yeah.
So they're just, by virtue of the fact that they're bigger and they have more resources to contribute to their songs, if you will, they get chosen. And the sexual selection in koalas is something that we don't know much about because they really just hang out all the time.
So
They hang out and they groan.
The females doing the choosing, it's not one koala basically, then the other one disappears. It's the female goes,
The female's
"Good
just
sound."
like, you sound good.
Sounds good.
That seems to be where the research is.
Thank you, Dr. Bondar. We have learned more today.
There's your happy, touchy-feely
That's your happy ending to Valentine's Day. You can pick up Dr. Bondar's book if you want to find out more. There it is right there, The Nature of Human Nature.
And people can read your blog on Huffington Post.
Yes, and all the links are on my website.
There you go.
Beautiful.
Just go to her website. It is
Learn
all
more
there.
about
We're
it.
going to take a quick break, and when we return,